He has my child. My voice cracks as I whisper into the phone, barely able to form the words. Who, ma'am? My ex-husband. I'm trembling now, tears blurring the vision of the bright, empty phone shop. The mayor's son, and I think he's going to kill me. The silence on the other end feels like a knife twisting in my chest. Ma'am, just stay calm. We're sending... The phone slips from my shaking hands. On the security monitor behind the bored clerk, 3 patrol cars were already circling the parking garage like sharks, their headlights cutting through the drizzle. They hadn't used their sirens. They were just there. My heart stopped. They're with him. Of course they are. Greg's dad was the mayor of this whole small town. His smile was on the Welcome to Mill Creek sign. Why did I think calling would save me? My fingers felt for the cold glass of the shop door. Outside, the wet pavement shone under the streetlight. I could see the blue and red lights now, reflecting off puddles, getting closer. I could almost hear my son Sammy crying for me in that big, empty house on the hill. They'll lock me up, call me crazy, unfit, and he'll have our baby forever. The clerk finally looked up, his eyes narrowing at the monitor, then at my pale face. A door slammed outside, too close. My legs moved before my mind caught up. I run. My sneakers slapped the wet asphalt, the sound too loud in the quiet alley behind the phone shop. I could hear heavy boots hitting the ground, shouts echoing off the brick walls. "Jessica, stop!" I didn't look back. The cold air burned my lungs. I cut across Main Street, my jacket catching on a fence, tearing. I could see the grand old hotel, the Whitmore, at the end of the street. Its windows blazed with lights, and expensive cars lined the curb. A party. It was the only place with people. A crowd was my only chance. I ducked behind a delivery van as a police cruiser glided past, its spotlight scanning the dark shops. My breath came in ragged clouds. I had to get out of this street. The hotel's service entrance was just ahead, propped open with a crate. I sprinted for it, slipping inside a hot, noisy kitchen. Staff in white jackets stared as I rushed past steam tables and racks of clean plates. I pushed through a swinging door and was suddenly in a carpeted hallway, the sounds of a string quartet and laughing voices floating from a set of double doors. I could still run, find a back exit, but they'd find me, a woman alone, running, scared. I looked down at my torn jeans, my muddy sneakers. I was a ghost in this world of crystal and champagne. Then I remembered the bag slung across my chest, the last piece of my old life, the one I'd planned before Greg took everything. Without letting myself think, I turned into a marble-lined ladies' room. It was empty, perfumed. In the mirror, a stranger stared back, pale, wide-eyed, hair a dull brown and limp from the rain. The woman, Greg had told everyone, was unstable, hysterical. My fingers fumbled at the knot at the nape of my neck. I ripped the cheap wig off, letting my own hair, a bright coppery red, tumble out. I scrubbed my face with a towel, wiping away the smudged, timid makeup. From my bag, I pulled out a tube of red lipstick, Sammy's favorite color. He said it looks like candy. I swiped it on, a bold, defiant slash. Next came the dress. I shimmied out of my jeans and jacket, standing in my tank top. The dress was simple, black, folded tight at the bottom of my bag. I yanked it over my head, the silky fabric falling to my knees. I swapped my sneakers for a pair of low black heels. The transformation took less than 90 seconds. The woman in the mirror now held her chin high. Her eyes were scared, but the set of her mouth was hard. She looked like she belonged. I shoved my old clothes, my old life into the bag and dropped it behind a potted fern. Then I walked out of the bathroom and straight toward the thunder of the party. I pushed the heavy doors open. Light and sound hit me like a wave. The grand ballroom was packed, women in glittering gowns, men in tuxedos, all holding flutes of champagne. 1,000 candles reflected in mirrored walls. I felt the eyes start to land on me, a lone, slightly disheveled woman in a simple black dress. I scanned the crowd desperately, and then I saw him, Dante Costello. He stood near the fireplace, a circle of important people around him. He was taller than everyone else. He wasn't smiling. He listened, a glass of amber liquid in his hand, his gaze moving slowly across the room like a man assessing a chessboard. I'd only seen him in the society pages Greg's mother loved to read. Reclusive financier, the caption said. Rare public appearance. He was a rumor, a power even the mayor might hesitate to cross. The doors behind me burst open. 2 uniformed officers, their faces grim, stepped into the ballroom. Their eyes scanned the crowd. They hadn't seen me yet, but they would. My heart hammered against my ribs. There was no plan, only instinct. I walked. I didn't run. I pushed through the crowd, my eyes locked on Dante Costello. People murmured, parting slightly. The music seemed to fade. I felt the officer's gaze land on my back. I reached the circle around Dante. His cold gray eyes met mine. He didn't know me. I saw the slight question in his look, the subtle shift of his body, ready to have me removed. I dropped to one knee. The gasp that went through the crowd was a physical thing. 100 conversations died at once. The quartet trailed off. Every single person in the room turned to stare. The 2 police officers froze at the edge of the crowd, unable to push through the wall of stunned guests. I looked up at Dante Costello. My voice, when it came, didn't shake. It was clear, and it carried. Dante Costello, I said, will you marry me? The silence was absolute. You could hear the ice melt in a glass. His expression didn't change, but his eyes changed. They flickered, just for a second, from my face to the police uniforms at the back of the room, then to my trembling hands, to the desperate certainty in my eyes. He saw the whole story in that instant. One of the officers began to move forward. "Ma'am, we need you to come with us." Dante's hand came down, warm and heavy on my shoulder. He didn't look at the officer. He looked only at me, kneeling on the polished floor. A slow, subtle smile touched his lips, a private smile meant only for me, a recognition of the sheer, audacious gamble I'd just taken. He pulled me gently to my feet. His arm went around my waist, pulling me close. I could feel the fine wool of his tuxedo, smell his cologne, spice and cedar. My body trembled against his solidness. He turned his head just slightly toward the waiting officers and the gaping crowd. His voice, deep and quiet, cut through the silence like a blade. "I'm afraid you're mistaken, officer." He paused, letting his words settle. "This is my wife." Another louder gasp rippled through the room. Flashbulbs went off. The society photographers hadn't missed a beat. The officers hesitated, confused. The claim was absurd, impossible, but it was made by Dante Costello in a room full of the town's most powerful witnesses. Dante looked down at me, his gray eyes holding mine. He leaned in, his breath warm against my ear. His whisper was so low, only I could hear it, a thread of sound beneath the rising murmur of the crowd. "Play along, Jessica, if you want to live to see your child again." Then, louder for everyone to hear, he said, "You're late, my dear. I was worried." He raised my hand to his lips and kissed my knuckles. His touch was firm, possessive, a brand. He turned us toward the crowd, his arm a steel band around me. "Everyone," Dante announced, his voice now full of easy charm. "A surprise. My wife, Jessica, has finally joined me. Forgive her dramatic entrance. She has a flair for it." The crowd erupted in nervous laughter, then applause, the situation twisting into a bizarre, thrilling piece of theater. The officers were swallowed by the crowd, their purpose confused, their authority momentarily broken by the sheer social power of the man who held me. Dante began to lead me through the throng, nodding at faces, accepting congratulations for a marriage that didn't exist. I smiled, my face aching with the effort. I leaned into him, my head spinning. We reached a private door at the side of the ballroom. He opened it, guided me through, and shut it behind us. We were in a dark, wood-paneled library. The moment the door closed, his arm dropped from my waist. The warmth vanished. He walked to a desk, poured a drink from a crystal decanter, and did not offer me one. He turned and looked at me, all pretense gone. His face was like stone. "You have 5 minutes. He said, his voice cold and flat. "Tell me why the mayor's son is having his police force hunt you through the streets of my town." and tell me exactly where your child is. I stood there, and my stolen moment of safety, the applause still ringing in my ears, and understood one thing clearly. I had escaped the wolf at the door, but I had just walked of my own free will into the lion's den. The silence in the library was thick enough to choke on. The cold from Dante's eyes seemed to freeze the air between us. Your child, he repeated, the words like chips of ice. Where is he? Greg has him, I said, my voice raw. At the mayor's mansion. He took him this morning, after he said I was seeing things, that I was a danger to myself. He had a doctor sign a paper. My hands twisted together. I'm not crazy. I just saw the bank transfers, money from city projects going into his private accounts. He said if I ever spoke a word, I'd never see Sammy again. Dante took a slow sip of his whiskey. Gregory Holloway is a spoiled yat, he said, dismissing the mayor's son with a wave of his glass. His father is a useful idiot. But they are elected useful idiots with badges and judges in their pockets. You cannot fight them with the truth. Truth is a currency they don't trade in. He set the glass down with a precise click. You need a different kind of power. What power? I whispered, desperation clawing up my throat. He didn't answer directly. Instead, he walked to the heavy oak desk and opened a drawer. He pulled out a slim file, tossing it onto the polished surface between us. It slid to a stop in front of me. Open it. With trembling fingers, I did. The first page was a black and white surveillance photo of me, walking out of the public library a week ago, Sammy's hand in mine. My breath hitched. The next page was a bank statement, my barren, closed joint account. Another was a copy of the doctor's note Greg had used, the signature forged, details of my life laid bare. The final page wasn't about me. It was a legal document, old, the paper crisp. At the top, it read, Costello Family Trust, and below a list of names and titles, not CEOs or chairmen, consigliere, caporegime, sottocapo. At the very top, next to a name that made my blood run cold, was the title I'd only heard in whispers and dark jokes about our city's shadow, Dawn. I looked from the paper to his face, the elegant suit, the sharp, intelligent eyes. They didn't change. But now I saw what was beneath. The stillness wasn't just poise. It was the absolute calm of a predator who never needs to raise his voice. The power in the room wasn't just wealth. It was the kind that operated in alleys and boardrooms with the same ruthless efficiency. The word died in my mouth. I am the problem the Holloways call when their tidy corruption isn't enough. I am the off-the-books solution, the real law in this city. He tapped the file. I knew Greg Holloway was squeezing you the moment he froze your accounts. I knew he would take the child. I was waiting to see what you would do. A hot, sick fury rose in me. You were watching? My son was taken and you were just waiting? I am not a charity, Jessica. I am a businessman, and you have just walked into my office with a unique proposal. A ghost of that cold smile returned. You asked me to marry you. I accept. I stared at him, my mind reeling. It was a trick, a distraction. It was a public offer. I gave a public answer in front of half the city's elite. The story is already everywhere. He picked up his phone, showing me a social media feed, a blurry photo of me on my knee. The headline, Shocking Proposal at Whitmore Gala. The marriage of Dante Costello is not a small thing. To undo it now would be to show weakness. I cannot allow that. He took the file, removed the last page, and placed a single sheet of clean paper before me. At the top, it said, Contract of Matrimonial Alliance. This is the real proposal, he said. You will be my wife in appearance only, for a period of 1 month. You will live in my home, attend my functions, and present a united front. In return, I will do 3 things. 1, I will immediately make you untouchable by the Holloways and their police. 2, I will, within the month, secure the unequivocal and legal return of your son, Samuel, to your sole custody. 3, I will provide you with enough evidence to bury Gregory Holloway and his father under the prison, should you ever wish to use it. The list was everything I dreamed of, everything I'd prayed for in that phone booth. It was a miracle, and it was being offered by the devil. Why? My voice was a dry crackle. Why would you do this? What do you get from a contract wife? For the first time, a flicker of something human crossed his face. Not warmth, calculation. My world is one of perceived strength. A solitary man is a target. A man with a family, a wife, is seen as stable, rooted. It complicates the calculations of my enemies. For the next month, I am engaged in a very delicate negotiation. Your presence by my side is a strategic asset. You are a woman who showed enough spine to run from the police and enough cunning to find the one man in the room who could actually help you. That is a performance my associates will respect. He pushed a pen toward me. Sign it, or don't. If you don't, I will have my driver take you to the city limits. You can try your luck with the Holloway's police again. See how far your truth gets you. I looked at the pen. It was heavy, solid gold. I thought of Sammy's small hand in mine, his laugh, the way he cried for me in the night. I thought of Greg's smug smile, the cold stare of the officers who were his personal hunting dogs. I had no allies, no money, no power. Only a mother's love, which counted for nothing in the courts Greg controlled. Here was power, raw, terrifying, and offered with brutal clarity. It wasn't a rescue, it was a deal with the dragon. But the dragon was promising to incinerate the wolves at my door. My fingers closed around the pen. It was cold. I didn't let myself think anymore. Thinking led to fear, and fear led to paralysis. I had run out of choices the moment I saw those patrol cars circling. I signed my name at the bottom of the page. Jessica Holloway. My old name, my prison. Dante took the paper, scanned it, and gave a single slow nod. Jessica Costello, he said, testing the sound. You will move into the penthouse tonight. My head of security, Leo, will be your shadow. He will get you anything you need, except a way out. Do not attempt to contact your old life. It is dead. He walked to the door and opened it. A large, quiet man in a tailored suit stood there, Leo. His eyes were kind, but I saw no softness in him. Leo will show you to the car. Dante looked back at me, his figure framed in the doorway. Welcome to the family, Jessica. Remember, from this moment on, your every performance matters. The sooner you convince the city you are in love with me, the sooner you will hold your son. He turned and left, disappearing back into the murmur of the party, leaving me standing alone in the silent library with a man who was now my guard. I followed Leo down a private elevator to a waiting black car. As it slid away from the glittering hotel, away from the sirens and the chase, I didn't feel relief. I felt the weight of the signature on that page, a chain heavier than any I'd worn before. I had traded one cage for another, but this cage had a key, and that key was shaped like my little boy. I stared out at the passing city lights, my reflection a pale ghost against the dark glass. I had just promised to pretend to be the wife of a monster, and I had never meant anything more in my life. The penthouse wasn't a home. It was a fortress of glass and cold marble. High above the city, Leo, my shadow, spoke only when necessary. He showed me a room with a view of the distant river and the old manicured gardens of the mayor's mansion neighborhood. It felt like a taunt. The attack began by morning. It wasn't with police sirens. It was cleaner, sharper, legal. A process server arrived at Dante's building lobby, stopped by security, but the message delivered. A thick envelope for me. I opened it at the vast, empty dining table. Emergency custody hearing, scheduled for 3 p.m. today. The petition, filed by Gregory Holloway, cited the mother's documented instability and her sudden, reckless association with known criminal elements as an imminent danger to the child. Attached were grainy photos from the gala, me kneeling before Dante, Dante's arm around me. A screenshot of a gossip blog headline, "Runaway heiress finds refuge with city's most notorious bachelor?" My blood turned to ice. They were moving fast, using my one act of survival against me. Dante answered, already dressed in a dark suit, reading a tablet. He didn't look up. The mayor's opening move. Predictable. He thinks the courts are his living room. They are. I shoved the papers across the table. His golf buddy is the family court judge. He'll grant this. He'll make it permanent. He will try. Dante finally looked at me. Sit down. Eat. You'll need your strength. How can you be so calm? Because he is playing chess with the pieces he knows, Dante said, taking a sip of black coffee. Leo stepped forward, placing a folder before Dante. Dante opened it, sliding 2 photographs toward me. The first showed a sleek, modern building, the mayor's new urban renewal project. The second showed a scowling man in a hard hat speaking with a city inspector. The mayor's pet project, built by a non-union crew using subcontractors who are associates of mine. The inspector, a very upright man, is about to discover serious foundational flaws, life-threatening flaws. The project will be frozen this afternoon. He slid another paper, a bank routing number. This is a charitable fund the mayor uses to wash bribe money. By close of business, a whistleblower report and all its transaction records will be delivered to the state attorney general's office. Not the local one, the state. I stared at him, the scale of it dawning. He wasn't fighting the custody petition. He was besieging the entire kingdom. But the hearing's at 3, I whispered. Yes. And the mayor will be on a conference call with his panicking donors and his lawyers about these other matters. He will be distracted. His judge will be nervous. The ground is shifting under their feet. He stood. You will attend the hearing. Leo will go with you. You will say nothing unless directly questioned. You will look calm, elegant, and utterly unmoved by their circus. He walked to the door, then paused. Wear the blue dress hanging in your closet. It projects innocence. And Jessica, he met my eyes. Do not cry. Tears are a weapon they expect from you. Deny them. The courthouse was a monument of gray stone, heavy with dread. Leo moved through the crowded halls like a ship through ice, people parting. Reporters shouted, cameras flashing. Jessica, is it true you're married to Dante Costello? Are you a threat to your son? I kept my chin up, my eyes ahead, my heart a frantic drum against my ribs. The blue dress felt like armor. Inside the sterile courtroom, Greg was already there with his slick lawyer. He gave me a look of pure, smug hatred. The judge, a stern man with the mayor's campaign pin subtly on his robe's lapel, frowned as we entered. The hearing began. Greg's lawyer painted a picture of a hysterical woman fleeing police, entangled with a dangerous crime figure. He presented the photos. He called a family therapist who'd seen me once, paid by Greg, who spoke vaguely about emotional fragility. My nails dug into my palms. I focused on breathing, on Dante's words. Deny them. Then, Greg's lawyer asked for an immediate suspension of all visitation pending a full psychological evaluation. The judge nodded, lifting his gavel. Given the concerning evidence of the mother's association and erratic behavior, I'm inclined to grant. The heavy courtroom door burst open. A young, harried man in a City Hall ID badge rushed in, ignoring the bailiff, and went straight to Greg. He whispered frantically in his ear. Greg's face changed, the smugness drained, replaced with shock, then pale fury. He stood up. Your Honor, I request a brief recess. We are in the middle of testimony, Mr. Holloway, the judge said, annoyed. It's an emergency regarding the waterfront tower project and other matters. The judge's eyes narrowed. He knew. He could read the panic on the mayor's son's face. The ground was shifting. He cleared his throat. We will recess for 1 hour. As Greg stormed out, phone to his ear, his lawyer scrambling after him, I finally looked at Leo. His face was impassive, but he gave the slightest nod. Dante's siege was working. In the hallway, I saw the mayor himself arrive, red-faced, surrounded by aides. He shot a look at me, a look of pure, venomous rage. It wasn't the look of a politician anymore. It was the look of a cornered animal. He saw me not as a nuisance, but as the point of the spear being driven into his empire. For the first time, I didn't feel fear looking at him. I felt a cold, sharp clarity. He was just a man, a powerful, corrupt man, but a man whose walls were cracking. When the hearing reconvened, the energy had changed. The judge's tone was more cautious. Greg's lawyer, flustered, pushed for the visitation ban. My court-appointed lawyer, a quiet woman Dante had somehow arranged, finally spoke. Your Honor, my client has done nothing but seek safety from a powerful family that is now demonstrably abusing its authority. The police report from last night is not a report on her, it is a report she attempted to make, which was ignored. Her association with Mr. Costello is a personal matter, not evidence of instability. We request the court deny this transparent attempt to punish a mother for escaping a threatening situation. The judge rubbed his temples. He looked from Greg's furious, distracted face to my still, composed one. The mayor was whispering fiercely to an aide in the gallery. Visitation will not be suspended, the judge said, his voice tight. But it will be supervised at a family center, twice weekly, and Mrs. Holloway, Costello, I said, my voice clear and firm in the silent room. It's Jessica Costello now. The judge stared. Greg looked like he'd been slapped. The gavel fell. Adjourned. Outside, the late afternoon sun was blinding. Leo guided me to the car. I was shaking, but not from fear, from a fierce, trembling energy. You did well, Leo said, a first. As the car pulled away, my phone, a new one Dante had given me, buzzed. A single text from an unknown number. It was a photo, taken from afar through a long lens. Sammy, in the mayor's mansion garden, kicking a ball with a bored-looking nanny. He looked okay. He looked whole. Beneath it was a message. First move. The game is underway. Be ready for the next. D. I clutched the phone to my chest, staring at my son's face. I had not gotten him back, but I had held the line. I had stood in the mayor's own court and not broken. I had seen the fear in my enemy's eyes. Dante's world was one of shadows and brutal calculation, but in that darkness, I was no longer just a pawn. I was learning the rules. I was the unexpected piece on the board, the one with everything to fight for. And for the first time since Greg took him, I felt a thread of real, ferocious hope. It wasn't clean, it wasn't safe, it was a deal with the devil. But the devil kept his promises, and I was learning how to fight. The week that followed was a strange, suspended time. The supervised visits at the family center were a special kind of torture. 2 hours, twice a week, with a social worker watching every hug, noting every whispered, "I miss you, Mommy." Sammy clung to me, confused. When do I come home? Why do I have to stay with Dad and Grandpa? I could only hold him, my heart breaking. Soon, baby, very soon. Each time a different nanny brought him, a stern woman who worked the mayor, she watched me like I was a virus. Afterwards, I returned to the glass penthouse feeling empty and furious. Dante was often gone, but his presence filled the space. He left a dossier for me one morning. It was a deeper look into the mayor's operations, shell companies, hidden properties. Knowledge is your shield, a note said. I studied it, not just for my son, but because I was starting to see the patterns, the weaknesses. I started leaving my own notes on his desk, questions, connections I'd spotted. He never acknowledged them, but the dossier the next day would address my points. One evening he returned late. I was in the library, staring at a map of the mayor's neighborhood I'd been obsessing over. He stood in the doorway, his tie loose. "You're looking at the wrong street," he said, his voice rough with fatigue. I jumped. What? The main gate is the show. The service entrance on Elm is where the real deliveries come, including the weekly grocery order for the household. He walked over, his arm brushing my shoulder as he pointed to a spot on the map. He smelled like cold night air and expensive whiskey. A man's routines are his vulnerability, even a mayor's. Why are you telling me this? Because you're trying to think like I do. It's a start. He poured a drink. The legal battle is a stalemate. The mayor is bleeding from the scandals, but he's dug in on your son. He's using the child as a shield, thinking it's the one thing I can't touch. I turned to face him. Can you? He swirled the amber liquid in his glass, his gray eyes unreadable. I told you I would get your son back. The month is not yet up. He finished the drink. Be ready tomorrow. Wear something you can move in. My breath caught. Tomorrow? He's hosting a family fundraiser picnic in the mansion gardens, a public show of normalcy. He'll have the boy there. Dante set the glass down. We're going to accept the invitation. The mayor's estate was a picture of old money power. The fundraiser was in full swing on the sprawling back lawn. White tents, people in summer suits, the sound of string quartet fighting with children's laughter. My stomach was a knot of ice. Leo was a constant, silent presence a step behind us. We saw Greg first, holding a drink, laughing too loud. His smile died when he saw Dante. Then the mayor himself descended, his politician's grin tight. Dante, a surprise. His eyes darted to me, pure venom. And my former daughter-in-law, I see you've landed on your feet. Mayor, Dante said, his voice a quiet hum that somehow cut through the party noise. We need to talk, in private, about the zoning variances for the North Side docks. The mayor's eyes gleamed with a mix of fear and greed. The docks were a Costello stronghold. A negotiation with Dante was a threat and a prize. He led us into his private study, a wood-paneled room overlooking the garden. I could see Sammy then. He was by the rose bushes with the same stern nanny, looking small and lost. The door clicked shut, the party sounds muted. The boy stays, the mayor said, crossing to his desk, playing the powerful host. I won't have him in a criminal environment. Your environment is a prison of paper and lies, and your walls are crumbling. The state attorney is not your friend. Your donors are fleeing. The only asset you have left that I want is the child in your garden. The mayor laughed, a dry, hollow sound. And you think you can just take him? There are 200 witnesses outside. I don't take, I trade. You give me the boy, willingly, with a signed document granting Jessica full custody, and in return, I give you this. He drew a single, unsealed envelope from his inside pocket and tossed it on the desk. The mayor, suspicious, opened it. He pulled out a handful of photographs. His face went ashen. They weren't of bribes or buildings. They were of a woman, a young boy, not Sammy, at a villa somewhere sunny. The mayor's other life, his deepest, most hidden secret. You have 48 hours before this lands on your wife's lap and the front page of every paper, Dante said, his voice absolutely calm. Or you can sign the papers my lawyer has already filed with the court, effective immediately. You can walk out there, have the nanny bring the boy to his mother, and this other life of yours remains safe. Your choice. The room was silent. I watched the mayor's defiance shatter. He wasn't fighting for a grandson. He was fighting for his own double life. He looked from the photos to Dante's impassive face, to my desperate one. With the hand that trembled, he picked up his desk phone. Marlene, he barked, bring Samuel to my study, now. It felt like a lifetime standing there in that awful silence. Then the door opened. The nanny led Samuel in, her face confused. Mommy! Sammy's voice was a bright, startled thing. He broke free and ran to me. I fell to my knees and caught him, burying my face in his hair, breathing in his little boy smell of grass and sunshine. I couldn't speak. I just held him, tears I couldn't stop soaking into his shirt. His small arms wrapped tightly around my neck. You came, he whispered, as if he'd stopped believing I would. I looked up, my vision blurred. Dante was watching us, his usual mask on place, but in his eyes for a fleeting second I saw something else. Not triumph, something softer, almost wistful. He gave a slight nod to the mayor. The papers will be delivered within the hour. See that you sign them. He didn't wait for an answer. He simply turned and opened the study door, holding it for us. Leo fell in behind as I stood, Sammy clinging to me, his legs wrapped around my waist. We walked through the stunned party, past Greg's furious, frozen face, out into the fading afternoon light. The car ride was quiet. Sammy, exhausted from emotion, fell asleep against my chest, his fingers tangled in my dress. I stared out the window, the weight of him real and solid at last. Dante sat across from us, looking at his phone. After a long while, he spoke without looking up. He will need to see a doctor, a real one we trust. Thank you, I said, the words hopelessly inadequate. It was a transaction, a successful one. He finally met my gaze. The hard edge was back, but it didn't feel as sharp as before. Your contract is not yet fulfilled. You and the boy will remain under my protection at the penthouse until the month is complete. It is the only way to ensure the mayor doesn't try to retaliate." I just nodded, holding Sammy closer. I knew it wasn't over, but the war has shifted. That night, in the penthouse, I tucked Sammy into a bed in the room next to mine. He slept deeply, a stuffed lion Leo had produced from somewhere clutched in his hand. I stood in the doorway, watching him breathe, the fear finally beginning to unknot. I walked out into the living area. Dante was on the terrace, silhouetted against the city lights. I went to stand beside him, not too close. "He asked if the tall man was a prince who helped you rescue him," I said softly. Dante let out a short, quiet breath that wasn't quite a laugh. "A prince," he shook his head, looking out at the sprawl of his kingdom. "What will you tell him?" "The truth," I said, "that sometimes help comes from unexpected places, and that we should be grateful." He was silent for a long moment. The space between us on the dark terrace felt charged, alive with all the unspoken things. "Gratitude is a poor foundation," he said finally, his voice low, "but it is a start." He turned to go inside. His hand briefly brushed my arm as he passed, a touch so light I might have imagined it, but the warmth it left on my skin felt real. I was a mother with her child again, and for the first time, looking at the closed door to his study, I didn't just see my dangerous protector. I saw the man who looked at a weeping boy and thought to buy him a stuffed lion, and that was a revelation more terrifying and hopeful than anything that had come before. Sammy's presence changed everything. The glass penthouse, once a cold fortress, began to feel like a sanctuary. His toys dotted the marble floors. His laughter bounced off the high ceilings. Leo, my stoic shadow, revealed a hidden talent for making animal-shaped pancakes. The fortress had a heartbeat now. And Dante became a different man, or perhaps he showed a part of himself he kept locked away. He was never overtly affectionate, but he was present. He'd appear in the doorway of the playroom in the evening, still in his suit, and watch Sammy build a chaotic block tower. He didn't speak much, but his silence wasn't intimidating. It was attentive. One night, after I'd read Sammy 3 stories, I found Dante in the library. A fire was lit in the hearth, casting warm shadows. "He's asking if you'll read to him tomorrow," I said, leaning against the doorframe. Dante looked up from his papers, surprised. "I'm not adept at children's stories." "He doesn't care about the voices. He just likes the company." Dante gave a slow nod. The next evening, I walked past the half-open door to see Dante sitting stiffly in a chair, holding a picture book about a train. Sammy was curled in the big chair beside him, his head leaning against Dante's arm. Dante's voice was a low, steady rumble. No performance, just the words. My throat tightened. Our own interactions were a delicate dance. The contract hung between us, a piece of paper and a safe that defined our relationship as a business deal, but the life we were building around it felt nothing but transactional. We began having dinner together after Sammy was asleep. No staff, just the 2 of us at the long table. We talked about safe things at first, Sammy's progress, the news. Then one night, I asked about a painting in the hall, a dark, stormy seascape. "It's from the town in Italy where my mother was born," he said, pushing his plate aside. "A place called Positano. She said the sea there was both beautiful and violent. It reminded her of life." "Do you ever go back?" "No, that life is gone." He looked at me, really looked. "You understand, having to build a new life from the rubble of the old." I did. For the first time, I saw not just the powerful Don, but the boy who had also lost something. We were both exiles. Another night, a sudden summer storm knocked out the power in our building. The penthouse was plunged into inky blackness, the city lights below extinguished. I gasped, my old fears surging, trapped, helpless. A moment later, a warm beam of light cut the dark. Dante stood in the doorway of the dining room, holding an old-fashioned brass flashlight. He didn't say, "It's okay," or "Don't be afraid." He simply walked over, his presence solid and real in the chaos. "The backup generator will engage shortly," he said, shining the light towards the terrace. "Come, the city is never more honest than when it's dark." We stood at the floor-to-ceiling windows. Without its electric glitter, the city was just a vast, shapeless shadow beneath the churning purple sky. The only light came from the frantic forks of lightning. "It's like the whole world has been reset," I whispered. "A temporary illusion," he said, "but a useful one. It reminds you what is real." He was close beside me. I could feel the heat from his arm, smell the rain on his skin from an earlier walk. When the lightning flashed, it illuminated his profile, strong, unyielding, but in that moment, just a man in the dark. My hand brushed against his. I didn't pull away. Neither did he. His fingers laced through mine, his grip firm, grounding. We stood like that until the lights flickered back on, and the moment broke, but the feeling lingered. The contract's end date loomed. 1 week left. The thought sent a cold panic through me that had nothing to do with the mayor. I had my son. I was safe. The deal was done. I should have been planning our escape, a quiet life somewhere far away. But I wasn't. The mayor was quiet, but not gone. We saw it in the news, a continued political collapse, but no arrest. He was wounded, not dead. And Greg had vanished, which worried Leo more than he said. The threat was dormant, not extinct. The night of the charity gala for the city hospital was the final contractual obligation, a public appearance as a united front. I wore a deep green dress. Dante, in a tuxedo, fastened a simple diamond necklace around my throat. His fingers were warm against my skin. "A final accessory for the final performance," he said, his voice close to my ear. But it didn't feel like a performance. As we moved through the crowd, his hand resting lightly on the small of my back felt possessive, yes, but also protective. Right. We spoke to donors, we smiled for photos. We were convincing because in some crucial way, we weren't acting. In the car on the way home, the silence was thick with everything unsaid. The city lights streamed past the window. "The month is up in 3 days," I said, my voice barely audible. "I am aware." He didn't look at me. "What happens then?" "What was agreed. You are free to go. You will have all the evidence against the Holloways, enough money to start fresh anywhere. Leo will see you to safety for as long as you need." The plan was perfect. It was what I'd wanted. So why did it feel like a sentence? "And the you?" I asked. He finally turned his head. His eyes in the passing streetlights were unreadable. "I will remain. The business of the city continues." The car pulled into the underground garage. Leo got out, giving us privacy. The engine went quiet, leaving us in a bubble of tense silence. "I'm not sure I know how to be free anymore," I admitted, staring at my hands. "Out there, I'm just a target again. In here, with you, I'm not." "This life is not freedom, Jessica," he said, his voice rough. "It is a different kind of cage, gilded, but a cage nonetheless. You deserve sunlight, not shadow." "What if the shadow is where I feel safe?" I looked at him then, finally saying the dangerous thing. "What if I don't want to go?" He went very still. For a man who commanded armies with a look, he seemed suddenly uncertain. "The contract." "Forget the contract," the words burst out of me. "You showed me my son's face when I was breaking. You bought him a toy lion. You held my hand in the dark. Was that in the contract, Dante?" He reached out, his hand cupping my cheek. His thumb brushed away its hair I hadn't felt fall. "No," he said, his voice a low rasp. "That was not in the contract." He leaned in slowly, giving me every chance to pull away. I didn't. His lips met mine. It wasn't a gentle kiss, it was a claim and a surrender, full of all the tension and tenderness of the past month. It tasted like promise and danger, and I wanted all of it. When we pulled apart, we were both breathless. "The mayor's still out there," I whispered, my forehead against his. "Greg is missing. This isn't over." "It will never be over," he said, his arms wrapping around me, pulling me close. "But you will not face it alone, not anymore. If you stay knowing the danger is real and it is permanent. You stay as my wife in every sense. In the dark of the car, with the echo of his kiss on my lips and the steady beat of his heart under my hand, the choice was no choice at all. The contract had given me back my child, but Dante had given me back myself, stronger, fiercer, loved. I stay, I said. Upstairs, we checked on Sammy, sleeping peacefully, his lion guard beside him. Dante took my hands and led me not to my room, but to his. The door closed on the world of deals and threats. For now, there was only this new, fragile, unbreakable thing we had built from the rubble. But in a downtown hotel room across the city, Greg Holloway stared at a wall of photos of me, of Dante, of Sammy playing in the penthouse window. His phone rang. He answered, his voice a venomous whisper. She made her choice. She chose the monster. Now we show everyone what happens to monsters. The game had changed. The battle was won, but the war for our future had just begun. This brings us to the end of today's story. If you'd like a part 2, let me know in the comments. Thank you so much for listening till the end. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more stories like this. Also, comment your favorite scene, tell me where you're watching from, and who your favorite character is. See you in the next one.